Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives. Just kind of a bit of a heads up. I just felt like shit this whole day. I just woke up sour, and just the whole of this day, the feeling has just not left. It's permeated throughout, and I've just been in a foul mood all day, and it's part of the reason why I'm recording this so late. I felt maybe I shouldn't want to record this while I was feeling so negative, but I tried to, in a sense, I tried to get into the mood at several points, but just little things started getting to me. But if at any point during the vlog it feels like I'm not into it or I'm a little short, I just want to give you a heads up about my current headspace so that it doesn't throw you off. So okay, so just apologies in advance. Also, I have food on me right now, which I'm kind of guarding from dogs, so just a heads up in case I end up taking a bite of it during at any point during this vlog. So again, just wanted to let you know. But with all that out of the way, and if you decide to still watch this regardless, today we're going to be discussing episodes 91 and 92 of Steven Universe, Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service, and Monster Reunion. And of course, well, odd numbered episode first. Let's talk about Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service, and as the name of the episode implies, this has to do with Kiki of Fish Stew Pizza. And well, put simply, she's having some restless nights. As the as one evening after Steven orders some pizza from Vishnu Pizza and then subsequently passes out after eating too much pizza, he has a dream where he's flying over an entire valley of pizza, and in said valley he sees Kiki supposedly being pulled under the pizza and almost drowning. Steven, being Steven, he goes in to save her, and well, while everything seems all well and good with Dream Kiki thanking him for the assistance and him flying off to revel in his victory, well, the next day when he goes to tell Kiki of said dream, we end up seeing that it turns out that she actually remembers the dream too, and when Steven describes it to her, she's able to guess everything in proper detail. Sorry, I think something fell. Whatever. Either way, so Steven realizes that he actually wound up entering Kiki's dream using his powers. And well, at first he's all apologetic because he entered her dream without permission, so he's sorry. Actually, she's overjoyed by this because apparently that pizza dream that she's been having, she's had it every night for a while, and it's led to her not getting a good night's rest. And so with Steven and his powers, he can go in and help her because, well, apparently last night she did get a good night's sleep. As such, Steven is more than willing to help her, and so for the next few nights, he uses his powers to continually enter her dream and save her from the pizza dragging her under and drowning her. But the thing is, she really was not kidding. She has the dream every night. And her, unfortunately for Steven, actually, well, apparently using his powers so often does start to take a physical toll on him as he starts getting actually exhausted. As during the day he actually does end up falling asleep more. He doesn't get the necessary serotonin and various other chemicals that a body needs while they're sleeping. And so pretty much he's just not doing well, to the point where one day when Kiki comes by to drop off a free pizza as thanks for all the help that Steven has been giving her, well, he's pretty much slept in throughout the whole day. And so Steven, well, he's realizing he can't keep doing this because he's just getting too tired. And so he asks Kiki if there's something that he pretty much wants Kiki to help. He realizes that if they want to fix this, they need to get to the root of the problem because like I said, because Steven can't keep doing this, which Kiki understands, but the thing is, she's not exact. But the thing is, it's clear that yeah, they have. It's clear that this isn't something she's looking forward to. But either way, that night, Steven and Kiki decided to actually make things right. As once they go back into the nightmare and they start fighting through the cheese, they realize they need to find the source of the cheese, like whatever is spewing it out and causing Kiki and dragging Kiki under. If they can find the source of that, then maybe they can put an end to all these nightmares. And sure enough, when they fly around from the cheese lake, pops out Kiki's own cheese head, which Kiki even says is messed up. But she and Steven fly inside, and after dealing with some more topping based obstacles, they end up finding the source of everything. a cheese version of Kiki's sister Jenny. And it turns out that what's really going on is stress. Sibling slash work related stress. You see, the thing is, it turns out that Kiki's been pulling some double shifts. This actually has something that's occurred throughout the episode. I just didn't mention it, but essentially, Jenny for the last 2 weeks has been shirking her responsibilities and pretty much just shoving everything onto, or Jenny has been shoving everything on, Jenny has been shirking her responsibility and shoving them onto Kiki as well. Part of her responsibility is delivering pizza, and Kiki likes to run, so hey, maybe she can run while carrying the pizzas. And so pretty much just all these 2 weeks, Kiki has been doing all of Jenny's work. And well, that's where all the stress is manifesting, as well, she doesn't want to do all this stuff. She wants her breaks, but she doesn't want to say no to her sister because it's her sister. She can't do that. And so once Steven and Kiki see this dream version of Jenny come up, sadly, she still has problems confronting her as the cheese Jenny ends up grabbing Kiki and tries pulling her under, but the whole time she's like, "Oh, thanks for covering all those shifts for me. I appreciate it." And Kiki is just saying, "No, it's fine. I get it. No, I get it. That's what sisters are for, right?" And yeah, it's still clearly getting to her, which Steven calls Kiki out on, which Kiki says, "Look, it's like I can't say no. I don't want to disappoint her." Steven's like, "Well, I told you but you seem fine with it. So why is it different with her?" And she says, "Because she's my sister, and I don't want to let her down." And Steven responds with, "Do you think if she knew what all this stuff was doing to you, that she would want you to keep doing this? Does she even know you're having these stress dreams?" And pretty much Steven tells her, it's like, you got to think about yourself here because this is hurting you. You need to learn to say no. And so, sure enough, once the dream cheese Jenny tries to say, "Look, there's a big rave going in the cheesecake later that I had to be there. Can you cover my shift?" Kiki just yells at her no, which actually seems to stop it, which at least was a kind of amusing scene where the cheese Jenny lets her go, pulls back, and then just scoffs and goes, "Fine," before everything just fades away into that one scene from Neon Genesis Evangelion with the heads popping out of the sea, except in this case it's giant pizza slices. But either way, the nightmare is over with only faint traces left. Kiki and Steven have a moment to relax, and Steven takes that moment to almost fall asleep in the dream. And the episode ends with Steven going to Fish Stew Pizza, seeing Jenny working, and pretty much Kiki and her had a talk, and while Jenny did protest a little about Kiki wanting to have some trying to have some me time, well, Jenny doesn't want to disappoint her sister either, and ultimately said, "You know what? Fine, take the day off. I can cover for you." And sure enough, we see that Kiki is taking the time off to run on her own time, and it's nice. Jenny's happy that she's happy, and Steven finally gets some notes she needs shut-eye, so that's a thing. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's move on to the next episode, Monster Reunion. And in this case, and for this episode, Steven gets his healing powers back. As Steven is cuddling one of his stuffed animals, Master of Ceremonies Bear Bear, or just MC Bear Bear now, as he got a tear in his arm, and so Steven says, "Don't worry, I'll help you until you're better," and gives him a kiss. And the rip heals. So Steven's got his healing powers back, which he immediately wants to showcase to the gems by fixing a plate that he breaks, only for Pearl to stop him and say, "I don't want you touching broken plate. Let me just get a dustpan." As such, with Steven's healing powers back, he wants to immediately start using them, specifically on the corrupted gems, as well, when he did have his healing powers, he didn't know that the corrupted gems were corrupted gems. And so he wants to try and use it, but Garnet tries to veto it, but Steven manages to pull out the big sparkly eyes, and well, Garnet breaks, so she concedes. And so Steven and the Get Gems enter the temple and go to I guess Garnet's room, essentially the place where they keep all the bubble gems. And Steven specifically zeroes in on one gem, specifically Centipedal. As well, as out of all the crypto gems, this is the one he formed a connection with, and so if he wants to try healing anyone first, he wants it to be her. As such, the gems, while still being a little cautious, decide to go along with it, and so Steven ends up popping Centipedal's bubble, and just as she starts trying to form, and you see her almost forming into the monster form, Steven does a quick little peck on her gem, which leads to like this big flash of light, and when the light and we see her form change as it seems to shift from the centipede form into one that's more humanoid, and so it looks like it might work until you actually get a good look at her. She looks mostly humanoid, as she's got as now her body now looks more humanoid, as she now has a normal amount of arms and legs, and she walks on 2 feet. She seems to be wearing part of an outfit, a bit of a top, like somewhat of a top and a bottom, but she still has the centipede, but her butt is still that of a centipede's, and while her eye is no longer located in her maw, she still has the maw, so it's progress, but still not there, as she's still not able to communicate with the gems, and, well, yeah, it's clear she's also not all there, as when Steven tries talking to her, she has no idea who the hell she is, and actually seems to be reacting with confusion, which, in retrospect, I think it's her actual personality coming out and thinking, where the hell am I? Who are you people? What's going on? Because, well, she probably popped up in a place that she knows something about. As such, she's justifiably freaking out, and while Steven tries to give her another peck in the eye, all that really does is cause her to squint and rub her eye, and it does nothing. So, it looks like this is the most progress that they can make with it, although the gems do think that this might be a lost cause, because even though this is more progress than they've ever seen before, it's still not a full heal. Centipedal is still slightly corrupted, and so the gems so the gems state that it might take more than a kiss to, well, heal damage from the diamonds. We'll get back on that. But put simply, yeah, the gems think this might still be a lost cause and decide maybe they should still poof Centipedal anyway, but Steven still advocates for her because this is still at least progress, and so he offers that maybe they can let Centipedal stay with them for a while, and so maybe he can help her. And so the gems once again reluctantly concede, with them agreeing to let Steven keep Centipedal in his room. And so the next scene is Steven and Centipedal talking, and, well, Steven's still trying to get through to her, get her to remember stuff, but she's still drawing a blank. And as such, Steven first laments that maybe that she's really lost, until he opens up a bag of Chaps brand chips, and the instant he opens it up, Centipedal's mouth starts drooling, and then when Steven starts humming the theme, or the Chaps theme, she starts singing along, and when Steven realizes that seems to be triggering something, he gives her the Chaps, and she just starts gobbling them up the instant she has one. And so it turns out, yeah, the memories are still in there, they just need a little push to get out. And so, with the Chaps, Senti does start to remember more stuff from when she was a full monster, including that she and Steven are friends. And so, but the thing is, because she still has the monster maw, she can't actually talk. And so Steven has the bright idea that maybe they can communicate through the power of art, through the power of writing, which at first does seem to work, only Centipedal's writing looks more like actual inane scribbles. As such, Steven decides to go for another idea. Pictionary, through art of pictures, which Centipedal seems to get immediately as Steven draws a picture of himself, and then she immediately draws a stick figure version of herself standing next to him, holding his hand, which is adorable and sweet, I like it. But pretty much, Steven decides to ask Centipedal some more personal questions, because she does still clearly have more memories, and so he begins asking if you remember anything from before you were corrupted. And he doesn't say it exactly like that, but that's what it pretty much is. And so Centipedal begins revealing more information about her, and, well, it turns out Centipedal was actually once a captain, and she and her crew were part of the original landing party that were sent to colonize Earth. And for the most, and pretty much, and essentially, that things were going well for the most part until the Gem War broke out, and sadly, Centipedal and her crew were part of the soldiers. And we learned in a later episode that she was on the opposing side. She was a homeworld gem fighting against the crystal gems. But either way, based on how Centipedal describes everything, it was just carnage and destruction everywhere she went. As she draws in a picture of the battlefield, she begins immediately slashing and cutting and crossing out portions of the battlefield, making explosion and noises everywhere she goes, until all that's left are her and her crew, which even then, she showcases that during the battle she was separated from her crew, but she kept going until her superior ordered everyone to retreat. And Centipedal really had no idea why they were retreating, but she was still going along with it anyway. She tried running back to her ship, but she couldn't find it. She was lost, confused, didn't know what was going on. Why were they running away? What was happening? Where was her crew? And so forth. But unfortunately, she was too little, too late. So, do you remember back in the Lapis episode? I'm trying to remember the name of the episode, but it's escaping me. It's the one where the same old world episode. Remember in the same old world episode when Lapis explained her backstory to Steven and how when the homeworld gems retreated from Earth, there was a big white light in the sky? Well, Senti begins explaining that too, as when as everybody was retreating and she was still stuck on Earth, she also saw that same white light that filled the sky, and just remembering it causes her in the present day to just start breaking down. As tears start flowing from her eye, because her gem is her eye, and it just kind of stains it. It's clear that even recalling the event is just too traumatic for her. And what I love throughout this part is that Steven is the one narrating the story because based on what he can see from the pictures. But when he actually starts seeing the horror of the gem battle told through these little stick figures, you can just see just his sheer horror. Look, just this, like how much this is affecting him just through even with these crude drawings, knowing what she went through, how much terror and essentially destruction she had to go through, even from the opposite side. It's pretty serious and honestly rather gets to you. And as such, when he sees how badly this memory is affecting Senti, well, Steven is justified. It just goes into full comfort mode, just apologizing to her and says, I'm sorry, okay." But he does ask, "Do you know what the source of that light was?" And so Senti takes up another crayon, draws a symbol, and it's three diamonds on top, just stacked across. Yep, that white noise was from the diamonds. And that white noise was the thing that corrupted the gems. That's why, and we get further emphasis from that, as upon immediately revealing that information, Senti begins backpedaling as she immediately spits up some acid spit, and then she just falls over onto the ground, and her arm changes back to the centipede leg. As such, Steven realizes she's reverting, and while he tries to heal her again, that does nothing, and it just keeps going. And so basically, Steven and Centipede are freaking out because of this, and in the meantime, Steven tries to calm her down, tries to ask what he can do to help, and so Centipedal immediately Centipedal, and so through the picture, Steven is able to gather that Centipedal wants to get back to her ship. But unfortunately, because she's corrupted, she can't use the warp pad, but Steven, being Steven, and because Centipedal's his friend, he offers to help, and so they warp back to where the old gem ships are. And so as they're wandering through, Centipede runs off ahead, just calling out and screaming for someone, but the further she goes along, the worse the corruption gets. As she convulses again, her form changes again, and when she stops and once she settles, she's now mostly centipede again, with her eye now back in her maw, and only with two arms on her side, while the rest are centipede legs. But either way, she's still cognizant enough to know what's going on, and so she runs towards the ships again, and even manages to find a door that's covered in vines, which she starts ripping off. Steven immediately starts helping her until immediately they find a scanner that's supposed to scan your handprint. But when Senti tries going in to have it scan hers, that's when the corruption fully takes hold again, and it only is just her leg, which leads to honestly a really sad scene where when Centipede realizes she's fully reverted back, she just keeps smacking it with her centipede leg, and just it's clearly that she's pleading that the door open. Like, she just wants to get in there, and realizing she can't, it looks like she's about to break down again, only for Steven to slap his hand on, and it works as it manages to open the door. As such, Centipedal and Steven are a bit shocked, but they go inside anyway, and Steven wonders, okay, we're here, now what? But when they look up, they find more centipedals, and the instant our Senti sees them, she goes up and starts talking to them. It turns out This is her crew. And part of the reason why she wanted to get here, well, they were waiting for her. It turns out when the gems were ordered to leave were ordered to leave Earth, Centipedal's crew refused to leave without her, which honestly I think is really sweet, because is really sweet when you really stop and think about it, because this means that for all these thousands of years their drive and loyalty to their captain was so great that even when they were corrupted, they still waited for her because they were in this ship the whole time, which I like that. That's nice. I like that. That just makes me smile hearing that. But either way, Centipede reunites with the crew, and it's at this point when the other crystal gems show up, because it turns out her random scribbling writing, that's gem glyph. That's how gems write, and apparently how she wrote it was decently legible enough for them to understand and know what she wanted to do. In this case, they realized she wanted to get with her crew again. And while Amethyst wants to just hang out with this crew, even shapeshifting into her own version of a centipedal, which Pearl calls her out on, saying it's insensitive, well, they pretty much decide that she's happier here. That she's probably better off here. She's clearly seems happy, and she's clearly thankful to Steven for bringing her back to see her crew. And so the gems decide that she can just stay here. That this ship can be her bubble now, because she's now with people she cares about. She's happy, she's safe, and Steven is just happy that he was able to help. And so the episode ends with the Crystal Gems leaving the Centipedal clan as they all take a nap, with Steven asking Pearl if she can teach him gem glyph. And while she says that maybe he wouldn't have much use for it, especially since it is pretty difficult to use, and odds are there's probably not going to be a lot of opportunities where he can use it, Steven still wants to learn at least a few simple phrases, including "Hello, how are you? Where's the bathroom?" and "I'm sorry," as the final shot of the episode is him looking at the diamond drawing that Senti drew. So, okay. So first, Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service. This episode's fun. I like it. It definitely is. It's another one of the town. It's another towny episode, but it's one that's very creative in my opinion. As it's nice to actually, as when you have an episode that has whose main focus is a dream setting, it can allow for some very creative and fun stuff. And seeing Steven have to fight through literal cheese monsters to save Kiki, it's pretty nice, pretty fun, pretty fun. It does make me groan and cringe a little when Steven keeps busting out these cheese puns every night, because, well, Steven calls himself a dream warrior and is just getting more into it and gets into it every night. But at the very least, it is still pretty fun to see, especially when he and Kiki work out a dynamic. As I kind of like when Steven, that's another thing I do like with the Townie episodes, how used to all the magic stuff they are with Steven. And when when Steven tells Kiki about how he was able to enter her dream that previous night, rather than being horrified and being shocked that he can do that, her response is like, "Oh, cool! Can you do that again?" It's kind of funny and amusing. But at the same time, it does more. It once again continues building on the relationships that Steven has with the other denizens of Beach City. As well, the show is mostly focused on the crystal gems and the lore surrounding them. Beach City is still a place where Steven calls home, and while the episodes that are focused more on the townspeople can kind of lessen the show a bit, especially because it does kind of make the tone feel a bit erratic as we get to the high stuff with the space stuff and then drop down to the more normalized stuff in Beach City, which I admit can be distracting. At the very least, it does well in showcasing more of the dynamic between Steven and the denizens of Beach City, and showcasing that he cares about them just as much that he cares about them. How it helps build more on their characters, how they react and how they do stuff, and basically their relationship with Steven. And seeing how Steven operates as he helps Jenny, it's nice. I love how Jenny is happy that Steven's helping her. She's genuinely thankful for all the aid he's offering, and Steven being Steven, he's happy to give it. It's just pretty nice. And I do like that Kiki does try to be considerate of with Steven, that she even tries bringing him a pizza as a thank you, which I do like how even when Steven's sleep deprived, he takes a slice of it and just chows it down so it's delicious before he passes out again. I don't know why. That's just funny to me. But at the same time, the episode also has something very interesting about it. Basically, the moral lesson with this one is essentially having to learn to take care of yourself, pretty much. And it's one I do kind of agree with. In the case with Kiki and Jenny, Kiki continually kept pushing herself and letting her sister get off the hook because well, she loved her sister and didn't want her to be upset with her, which, believe it or not, I get that. There have been many opportunities. There have been plenty of times in my life where someone I know or I'm a friend or I care about has asked me, "Hey, can you do this?" Even though I was doing some, or I would plan on doing something else, or was in the middle of doing something else, and because I don't want to disappoint them, I say, "Sure, I can do that," and it's strong, like the feeling to please, the desire to want to please the people you care about can be very overwhelming. Because even when you want to take care of yourself and just have a you time, so to speak, when you have someone that says yes, there's a part of you that does not want to disappoint them, and I see that reflected with Kiki here, as when she is taking over Jenny's work and doing double shifts, even if it's doing something she loves, by which I mean running, it still is getting to her. The stress of having to constantly cover for her sister is getting to her. And while she keeps saying it's no problem, really, it clearly is, because she keeps having these stress dreams. And as a result, it does result in a very, well, I'm going to say toxic relationship. Now, one that's ultimately an unintentionally toxic relationship, because by the end of the episode, you do know Jenny is considerate of her sister and does does a lot, and when Kiki confronts her about it and says, "Look, I need some me time too. I need a day off." While Jenny does argue, she does say at the end of the day she does still concede and say, "Okay, fine, have your day off. I can cover your shifts. You're my sister, and I think you deserve some you time." It's again, it's nice. I do like that, and it does help showcase another thing. Yes, you don't want to disappoint these friends, but keep in mind they're still your friends slash family, because, well, they care about you. Yeah, they would love. Yeah, they want you to do some things, but if they knew what saying yes to these things could be doing to you, and that you want to take care of yourself, they can be very understanding. They care about you too. They want you to be happy. They want you to be content. And knowing that you're stressing yourself out about this and that helping them is getting into your head that much, yeah, they probably wouldn't like that. They probably would say, "Look, take some time off. I can do this thing. I can do this thing. I can do this thing instead. Just go take care of yourself." Which is ultimately what Kiki has to realize. That, because even when going back to when Steven made his comparison, when he told her, "I can't help you," and she understood, again, she talks about how Kiki is her, or not, yeah, how Kiki talks about how Jenny is her sister. I'm sorry, I think I keep getting their names mixed up. But Kiki talks about how Jenny is her sister, and how she just does not want to disappoint her because she loves her. She's her family, and she doesn't want to. And Jenny keeps talking about how she's her favorite sister, so she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to disappoint that, which again I understand. But at the same time, you do need to take care of yourself. It's okay to be a little selfish here and there. In this case, and in the case with Kiki, it's a good idea to take some you time off, and even if it might disappoint your sister, at the very least, if she really cared about you, she would understand, which by the end, she does. And I do like that. I do like seeing that showcase, that sometimes it is okay to say no and be a little selfish, because it's good. It helps, because you do need to take care of yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, it can have a negative impact on you, as we saw with Kiki in the episode. But ultimately, if these people really do care about you, they'll care about your well-being too, and it's always best to try and stay on err on the safe side. And if they aren't, if they end up doubling down on the whole stance altogether, then maybe they're not people you want to be associated with in the first place. So, either way, Jenny was not that person. She cared about Kiki, and by the end, things are resolved, and Steven and Kiki are able to get good night's sleep. So, again, overall, pretty good episode. Creative imagery with the whole pizza dream stuff. Has a good moral, some nice character building and dynamics with Steven and Kiki. Leads some fun action, some nice little setups, some creative imagery. Overall, pretty good episode. Pretty fun, and good moral at the end. So there you go. As for Monster Reunion, this is again another plot important episode, as this one does as not only do we have Steven finally getting his healing powers back after having them lost for a season and a half, pretty much at this point 2 seasons, I guess, because collectively I think that would be like 2 seasons. I think, whatever. Either way, after having them be gone for so long, he does get them back and starts trying to utilize them to try and make things better. In this case, trying to heal the corrupted gems. And I do like that they do remember the stuff with Centipedal. And what I do like throughout the episode is that, well, Steven's relationship with Centipedal when she was corrupted still bore fruit, as when Steven does talk with the partially corrupted Centipedal, it's essentially them trying to rebuild their relationship. Senti, of course, has no memory of befriending Steven, because I'm guessing that when she was restored even somewhat, her memories from when she was not corrupted came back, and thus I'm guessing the corrupted stuff was foggy. But again, sometimes you just have to get the right trigger, and those memories can come back. And so Centipedal, when Steven offers her the chaps, that's what gets her to remember being corrupted and being friends with Steven, which I do like. That she, like, based on how she acts, it does lead to it's clear that she still treasures Steven and still sees him as a friend, which I like. I think that's sweet. And again, the whole thing with Centipedal, I think, offers a nice little window into how corrupted gems typically work. And in this case, it showcases that despite their corruption, there's still enough of them up there that there can be saved. Case in point, when Centipedal's corruption started coming back, she even when she was turned back into a monster, her mind stayed intact, at least mostly. Case in point, when she went back to when she wanted to go back to the ship, she still remembered why she wanted to go there. She knew exactly what was the reason why she needed to be there. What was waiting for her when she went inside the ship, and when she was fully corrupted again and couldn't get inside, it almost looked like it looked like she was almost frantic, like, no, 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 I need to get in there, I need to get in there, I need to get in there. And so when she finally does get in there, it's just, you can see the pure relief in her eye when she's reunited with her crew, and she's hanging out with, and she's thanking Steven. It showcases that that despite the corruption, there still can be a semblance of who the original gem was in there. Again, it's probably buried pretty deep, but the fact that Centipedal, even when she was corrupted again, was still able to hold on to that semblance of self, it's a nice little bit of hope, especially considering that part of the reason she wanted to get back to her ship and her crew was because even in her crew's corrupted states, they knew, wait for our captain, we're not leaving without her. I like that. It's essentially a no man left behind type of deal. And by the end, when the gems decide to just let Centipedal stay in the ship with her crew, it is pretty sweet and nice, and continues building on the relationship between Steven and Centipedal. But another thing that I think works in the episode is the lore dump that we get throughout it, and we see it through the eyes of Centipedal. Again, it's a creative way with how she tells the story through pictures, because, well, Steven doesn't understand gemglyph, and Centipedal can't speak in a conventional sense, because, like I said, while her body was mostly uncorrupted, there were still enough corrupted parts of her that she couldn't actually communicate. So, hence why Steven started using the drawing. And even with all the cartoony stick figures and crude drawings, you could still get a semblance of what Centipedal went through when she was a regular gem. And case in point, sorry, looks like my phone might be falling off, so sorry about that. Because even when she's corrupt, because when she starts describing the Gem War, you can just feel, like, it's like an immediate tone shift. Because when Centipedal starts telling her story, it's like all happy and jovial, like I was a captain. I flew to Earth and we started colonizing. Steven doesn't say it like that because, like I said, he's narrating. But then once the Gem War breaks out, it's just like, it turns this happy little memory of her her bragging about how she was a ship captain, and just, it's like it takes a nosedive into Dark City, as immediately things just go wrong, as we see gems rushing off, and we see explosions in drawing form, which I do kind of like how they convey it. And what makes it, I think, better is that even in the stick figure drawings and simplistic style, it still conveys being caught in the middle of a war zone. Like when Steven realizes the Gem War is there again, his entire, it's like his face, like if they could convey it in the animation, it looks like his face goes white. It doesn't actually go white, but the way his pupils shrink when he realizes that she's now describing the Gem War, it's just sheer horror, and I love it. Especially when she just starts describing the tragedies in battle. At first she draws like a big group picture of herself and her crew and various other gems, and then she just starts going and as she just starts crossing off portions of her army that are gone. And yet when when she goes on to describe how being separated from her crew and then being asked to retreat, it's still in the stick figure drawing, only this one now actually has fluid animation. And so when Steven starts narrating over it and they're told to retreat, it's again offers a lot of mystery to everything. Especially when we see Centipedel's expression in the drawing. She looks worried, scared, and Steven's narration is she has no idea what the hell's going on. She just got the order to retreat, and now she's trying to run back to her ship, but doesn't know why. She doesn't know where her crew is. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. And by the end, she still doesn't get an answer. As once all the gems leave, that's when the big light in the sky happens. And again, whatever happened to her was traumatizing. So much so that even just recalling it causes her to start crying and break down. And I'm guessing this is a part of the reason why that was at that moment that she began to revert back into her fully corrupted form. Because whatever the trauma was, it was something big that transformed every gem on Earth into a monster, save those who were protected, like Rose, Garnet, and Pearl. It's clear, or in the case of so it's clear that whatever this thing was, it was big. It was a big thing, and I have a theory. I'm not going to give all the details behind it, but I will give enough. Essentially, something happened during the Gem War. We'll learn what it is in a few more episodes, but something big happened that affected the tide of the war, and it was something that Rose Quartz did. And what this thing was so big, it had an effect on the diamonds. So much so, hence why they had the retreat. And essentially the emotional toll it took on the diamonds was immense. And when we see the diamonds again in the series, we see what this does to them and how they're still reacting to it even thousands of years later. So keeping that in mind, keeping in mind what the tragedy is, again, won't say what it is for the sake of spoilers, though I'm sure Haley would spoil it, but I'm sure she'll kill me if she learns I said that, so hopefully she doesn't watch these vlogs. Tim, if you're watching this, please don't show these to her. But anyway, essentially, the weight of the tragedy was so great that it had an effect on the attack, because we learn later that the big white light, it was essentially the Diamond's way of trying to go scorched earth on the Earth, pretty much saying this thing is a lost cause. We're just gonna nuke the place and then go. Hence why they ordered the retreat. But because of the emotional impact of what Rose did, it had an effect on the attack. And so when the Diamonds launched the attack, well, put simply, it had an impact. And and again, this is a theory on my part, and I could be wrong because it's never confirmed or denied how it works. But essentially, I'm guessing that the emotional toll was so great that it affected every single gem that was caught in the attack, and thus rather than destroying them, it essentially it's like it hit every single one of those gems with that sorrow right in their gem, and the sorrow was so great that it broke them to the very core, which is what led to their corruption. And the thing is, we've seen throughout the way Garnet, because in this episode we do get a somewhat of a description of how corruption works, as Garnet compares it to MC Bear's tear. It's like instead of tearing the fabric of his arm, it's like he tore the fabric of his mind. And considering again that Centipedal, when she described the big white light, she broke down in tears, and then immediately after she started reverting back to her full corrupted form, I can guess, and again I could be wrong here, that essentially the trauma that the Diamonds that were funneling into the attack, they wound up throwing into every remaining gem. Again, some gems weren't affected, some were protected. Lapis was in the mirror, so she didn't get the full blast of it. From her perspective, all she saw was a light. And likewise, we even see later that Rose was able to protect Garnet and Pearl by throwing up her shield and then essentially just ducking in cover. So they were unaffected because of it. But in the case of every other gem, it's like they were hit square in the core of their being with just the trauma and sorrow of the Diamonds. And considering how hard and how fast it all hit them, yeah, I could see why that could lead to corruption, because if it hit them so bad that their minds are essentially cracked, then it makes sense why the gems would turn into monsters, because it's like the thing was imprinted onto their very beings, to the point where their sense of self is now gone, and the point where it's at, and it's so badly affected that they now can't even manifest their physical forms now. It's just the mad ravings of who they were, which are now translated physically into their monstrous forms. Again, I could be wrong here because they don't really explain how it works, but simply the way they describe everything, it is a big deal, and it's something that the more I think about it, the more I start to think, the more I could see it as a possibility. Again, it's just a theory, could totally be wrong. I'm not going to say that's what's actually happening, but I think it could. I think that might be having it, but I think that could be a reason why the attack led to the corruption. So yeah, but either way, at its core, Monster Reunion is a nice plot episode, as it's once again cool to see Steven get his healing powers back. I like that we do get a callback with Centipedal and her shtick and what happened with her. It's nice to see some follow up there, as we see Steven help her to at least gain some semblance of herself back, even if she did go back to being a corrupted gem in the end. But it was not again, but it was still nice seeing Steven help her to get back to her crew, seeing her actually nuzzle up to Steven, and it does give hope that the other corrupted gems can be brought back to their sense of can be brought back to normal too. As even while Centipedal was still corrupted, she still had her sense of self was still intact enough so that she could at least so that she could still at least remember everything even when she turned back. But at the same time, it also gives us a nice bit of lore dumping, as we get as we get another perspective on the gem more, get more clarification on the big white light, and ultimately how the gems of Earth were corrupted. Especially since we now learn that it was caused directly by the diamonds. So yeah, that's a big thing, and it does lead to some more questions being raised, as they don't reveal every little detail, but it does make you wonder how everything falls into place, and what led to certain events. So it's interesting. I like it. But so yeah, overall, Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service, fun episode, nice character building, nice action, cool imagery, and a nice moral. And Monster Reunion, strong episode, very plot heavy, leads to some nice moments, and ultimately some good revelations that will be built upon later. So yeah, I think that's about it. I hope I was able to turn in a good performance, because honestly, the more I talked about it, the better my mood was getting. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I will hopefully see you next week for a much lighter vlog. So, which I mean, lighting wise. But either way, I hope you have a good night. Again, Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.